Is this stuff out of the way, Abel? All right, I'll move it. Is that better? Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Memorial Day. We are streaming live on YouTube. Thousands and thousands of people are tuned in right now. All right. Anyway, you know, it is Memorial Day. And sometimes we need to be reminded. Go ahead and run. I got a little video I want us to watch. It's okay to cry. Tough reality. I've seen it 3 or 4 times trying to keep the tears from leaking out today, but they can't. The reality is, I hate war. I don't know why we have war. I can explain it. I'm going to try to explain it a little bit, but deep down, I just don't understand it. Some things in life I can't understand. I refuse to understand. I see pictures like that and how people have lost so much. And yet we fight and we argue and we bicker. And then we kill. We maim. It's tough, man. I don't understand it. I get it. I just don't understand it. What is wrong with mankind? What is wrong deep down? It starts right here. Starts in your life. The world's a challenge. Things go on that make no sense. And there's not a thing you can do about it. But there is something you can do about it here. And today, we're going to talk about the purpose of freedom. First, I got to say, why do we have war in this world? What's the purpose? One word, politics. It's politics. And I'm not talking about your personal belief on politics. What I want to explain to you, politics, the activities, actions, and policies that are used to gain and hold power in a government or to influence a government. That's what politics are. And yes, we argue about politics, we argue about religion, yet those are the two things that will go on and on and on. Believe here we're trying to understand how we can discuss viewpoints that might be contrary to the person sitting next to us without getting angry. Without thinking that we're crazy. Oh, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. It's not about knowing what you talk about. It's about being able to discuss openly feelings and come up with a solution so you can make life, your life, and the lives of those better. Politics are here. They're not going anywhere. Hey. How you doing? Nice to see you, Evander. Look at that belly. So easy to stop what we're doing when we see a baby and get giddy and just excited. Isn't it fun to see babies? But then we go to and that person who was once a baby is now an adult, and they talk a political stance different than yours, and you just want to spew venom. Well, maybe that's a little strong. Maybe it's not. Many do spew venom because of politics. They are the policies used to gain and hold power in government. Agree with them or disagree with them, that's why they are. This Memorial Day weekend, I want us to investigate what the purpose of freedom is. Because politics are always disguised with the word freedom. It's always it's because of freedom. Many have given their lives so we can have freedom. Many have. And I will never underscore the importance of that. However, what I want us to look at openly and honestly, that most did not give their lives were taken. Most people, when we think about Memorial Day because of wars, their lives were taken. They weren't given. How can I say that? Consider these stats. The first Jewish-Roman war from AD 66 to 73 had an estimated 300,000 to 1.3 million deaths. And what were these? These were Romans killing Jews, but more importantly, they were Jews killing Jews. Jews killing each other because they disagreed on their politics. They're in Jerusalem, and they're trying, you have to be a zealot. And if you're not a zealot, well, then I'm going to kill you because you're in my way, so I can be a zealot. They had a little bit of success, the Jews did, and so they thought, we're going to get Rome now. Oops. Rome had a pretty big army. They sent 60,000 trained fighters and destroyed the Jews, destroyed them. And the Jews stopped before they would be utterly destroyed and wiped off the face of the earth. Politics. Here's another one, the Crusades. Between 1 and 3 million deaths. These were religious wars between Christians and Muslims. In other words, Christians trying to force Muslims to become Christians. Kind of backwards now, isn't it? Muslims trying to force Christians to become Muslims. Politics. Again, why do we have to kill for what we think we believe in? And here's the most astounding stat I found. World War II. Oh my goodness. World War II. An estimated 56.4 million deaths, civilian and military. 56.5 million people. And you know what? I thought, oh, come on, that's one of those internet things, right? No, site after site after site. 56 plus million people. There was Chinese, there was Russians. The Jews, 6 million Jews, right? That were extinguished. I mean, it's just 56 million people to set people free. What are we gleaning from this? Why have so many lives been tragically cut short? I truly believe this with all my heart. People don't understand what true freedom is. They really don't get it. We politicize what freedom is. Think about it. We are in an incredible country. Talk about freedom. Oh my goodness. We have tremendous freedoms. And there's many countries around this world that don't openly have our freedoms. However, I've been to some of them, and I truly believe some of those are more free in an oppressed state than many Americans are in a free state. Thankfully, we live in a free country. But are you really free this morning? It's a question for inter-reflection. Are you really free? The book of Galatians 5:1. Love this statement. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. See, God knows that there's war. He's not surprised. Have you ever been given some information that kind of shocked you a little bit? Kind of caught you by surprise? You thought, I didn't see that coming. Somebody tells you something, and you're going, oh, well, now that makes sense. I get. See, God's never surprised. He knows the wars. He knows the victory. He knows everything that's going to go on in this life. Nothing surprises him. There always has been and there always will be war. Yet we're able to be free. How is that? Freedom is a spiritual truth, not a physical state. Freedom is where you choose to be spiritually. See, Paul, it says about here, do not be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. It's interesting. Let's consider who Paul is writing this to. See, Galatia was an area. Southern Galatia is where these churches were. This wasn't just a church. There's a group of churches in Galatia. These were circular letters. Pass these letters along. So they go around and around. Now, Galatia, in context, there's like Galatia's here and Rome's like here. Okay? It's like straight over. Galatia was under Roman rule. The Romans, all you have to do is a little historical lookup about how the Romans treated the people in the Roman Empire. Wasn't so swell. Slavery was a way, if you didn't have money, you were a slave. Period. If you couldn't pay tax, you became a slave. Period. Or you died. Those were your options. Death, slavery, pay taxes. There was no freedom. How can Paul be talking about do not be again burdened by a yoke of slavery? Again, it's a spiritual reality. It's not how we are living physically. How do we know we are free today? How do you know that you live in the land of freedom? Is it because of what somebody tells you? Or are you bound up with something that you really want to be set free from? What are the indicators that are truly living a life of freedom that God has designed for all of mankind? Now, do you realize God knows that there's rich and poor? God knows that there are people under oppression, and that He knows there are oppressors. He knows all that. Since the day of Cain and Abel, the first two boys, where the one killed the other, there has been war. There's never been a time without war. God is aware of all this. Paul is writing, do not be burdened by a yoke of slavery. Don't be burdened. Paul is saying to us, what's your lot in life? What's your physical reality? In this physical reality, you can be free. Joseph is a great example of a man who was free. He was in the dungeon for 2 years. The dungeon. No light. Filthy. Yet he knew he was called to be a leader. And yet he was free. In his chains, he was free. His eyes were continually on God, knowing that God one day would remove the chains. But more importantly than removing chains is, where is your focus today? Joseph kept his eyes upon the Lord, even in the rough stuff, even in the good stuff. Joseph kept his eyes firmly on God, knowing that my God shall deliver me. But even more than deliverance, my God is here with me. We live in a day where we all have that because of what Christ did on the cross. We all have the right to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, to be indwelt by the Holy Spirit, and to allow that Spirit to do in your life what the Spirit designs to do. With some, He's given tremendous gifts: prophecy, apostleship. There's so many gifts available through the Spirit. Some speak in tongues. And yeah, speaking in tongues is kind of weird. I know, I do it. It's kind of weird. But see, there's a communication that goes on between me and the Lord when I'm drawn into that place of surrender. Sometimes it just goes on because I want to get to the place of surrender, but then I get distracted. And then I say, well, Lord, I love you, but I guess I'm not really connected at this moment. And yet I don't know what goes on. There's interpretation of tongues. There's so many gifts. There's gifts, there's gifts of healing. There's gifts of giving. Some people give. That's their gift. It's a real gift. They give, and they know that the Lord is directing them to give in a certain direction. There's all kinds of gifts. But there's one Spirit. See, there's one Spirit for all of us. That's where we find our freedom. Some of us are sick in body. Some of us are hurt emotionally, physically. Some of us are just tired. Sick and tired, being sick and tired. Some of us are pregnant. Holy smokes, man. Don't get that at all. I don't know how they do that. I tip my hat to you women. I would think that once you would have learned after one, but when you go after two, it's your own fault. I'd take care of that after one. I'm done.
This is California, no fault.
Yeah, no fault. But see, there's a real freedom in being pregnant too. There's a real freedom when you're tuned into God and you realize what He's doing inside of you. Changing you, developing this incredible child that's going to come into this world. So how do we know we are free? Galatians 5, down the ways a little bit, it says this. I love this. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. So I say, walk by the Spirit. You will not gratify the desires of your flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so you are not able to do whatever you want. Love your neighbor as yourself. Who's your neighbor? Look around. Your neighbor's pretty much everyone you're going to come in contact with. Oh, wait a minute. Because of the internet, I can communicate with anyone, clear around the world. Because Facebook, I can see and post things that are clever or insulting, however I want. See, we live in a different day and age. We live in a global economy. Our world has shrunk. If you post or say something, it can be picked up anywhere. Is it love? You post love? They need to hear this. No, they don't. They need to be loved. The entire law is filled up, keeping that one command. Paul wrote it. Jesus said it. And I know you know right now, deep down, I'm right, because I'm not being right. I'm just relaying Scripture. It's about love. Freedom is about love. You have freedom to love. In your freedom, you're going to have pains and aches and sorrows. You're going to make mistakes. But you get up in the morning and go, I am free to love. I can share love with my neighbor. I can do good things. Some of you in here have done some amazing things for me. And I'm not going to list them now. I don't know why I'm not. It's kind of stupid not to. But anyhow, you have. And you know who I'm talking to, and you know what I'm saying. And yet, there's things in here I've done for other people in here too, out of love, because I love you. But are we doing it also for people we don't know? Better yet, are we doing it for people we hate? Flat out hate. Their politics are garbage. So what? Doesn't say anything here about politics. It's calling us to love. Can you imagine the world our children could have if they're taught to love? And here, let me help you with this. I'm not talking about change. There's always going to be war. It's just going to happen. I pray none of you have to suffer through that video we just saw personally like that, to where a husband or wife or child comes home in a bag because they're defending our rights for freedom, defending our country. Because there's always going to be war, and I hate war. But we can love despite it. Who knows? We turn our world upside down, maybe that'll bug our neighbor to turn their world upside down, and before long, everybody can start turning their world upside down in the way of love. Let's never forget those who paid for our freedom and the purpose that we have for it. The purpose that we have for freedom is to serve one another humbly in love. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. You know, honestly, I believe some of the best ways you can love somebody is to probably not invade their space and just create a little separation, because you're not going to get along and you're going to argue and fight and bicker, and allow yourself the time to grow in an area where you're weak. It's all right. Talked last week. We all have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. Let's not try to force ourselves into being happy. I'm going to be happy no matter what, if it kills me. No, you're to love. And love isn't one thing. Love is multifaceted. It's a jewel. Oh, it's a jewel. It's a wonderful jewel. God is reminding us today why we celebrate Memorial Day. He is. It's for freedom. But it's spiritual freedom. Being thankful for our physical freedom. Don't get me wrong. I never want to underscore that. I'm wearing a red, white, and blue shirt today. I am proud to be an American. Becky's all dressed up like a flag. Jillian. What's wrong with you, Bob? Peace, baby. Yeah, peace, baby. Bob looks like a golfer. There's nothing like the freedom on a golf course to drop another ball and hit a second shot, right, Bob? True freedom. And he does that a lot. I have a question, though, as we contemplate this freedom. What are we going to do with our freedom in this coming week, this coming month, and this coming year? I want you to make some plans. I really do. Sit down and think about it. How can I use my freedom? How am I going to use my freedom this week? How are you going to use it? Trust me, being the best mom on the planet to a baby, there's no better use for your freedom. Oh my goodness. There is no better use, husbands, than being the perfect husband or husband-to-be in the back there. Yeah, you in the purple. There's no better use of your freedom. But then we go, okay, well, how about next month? Yeah, June's right around the corner. How can we use our freedom? Maybe let's, okay, I'm really, this family thing, I'm pretty good at. I got a few areas that need a little polish, but I love my family, and I try to be a good mom and dad, and I really desire to expose them to things of the Lord. But God has given me this freedom, and I don't want the yoke of bondage. I don't want to be distraught over things like, what can I do in the town I live in? Is there something that God's drawing me to do next month? How about the rest of the year? Can we design a plan? Think about it. Pray about it. Talk to God. Boy, there's such incredible energy gained personally when we take our eyes off ourselves and put them on others. It's amazing. Walk by the Spirit. Walk by the Spirit. Talk to God. Walk by the Spirit. That's why I'm saying pray. When I say pray, that means talk to God. Just like this. You don't have to go, oh, Lord. Unless you see me and you go, oh, Brad. You know, if that's the way you talk, then okay. But God just wants us to communicate. He created us for communication. Communication is two-way. It's verbal and it's receiving. God wanted to make sure that you would hear, so he put an ear on either side of your head. So no matter what's going on, you can hear if it's coming from the left or coming from the right. People don't have a problem hearing me because I'm loud. But other people are not so loud. And so that he's given us the ability to hear, but him as well. He wants to speak to us. Ask him a question. Wait for an answer. Lord, I thank you for this freedom. I don't want to be in bondage. I don't want to be drawn to that place where I'm either angry or where I require some sort of medication that I don't want to take. And I don't mean medication, you know what I'm saying. Medicating ourselves, doing things that we just don't want to do. God has great plans for us. It's Memorial Day. You know, today is my dad's birthday. I was reminded he would have been 94 years old today. He has been gone for 29 years. That's a long time. He didn't live to be very old if you do the math. But I think about Memorial Day. So I think about, the things he taught me and showed me that I fought against. I'm so thankful for. He was right about so many things. Even though when I was growing up I thought he was so wrong. I'm right about what I'm saying today about this freedom. Your freedom, you will be so free in no matter what is against you when you understand that as I love others, I am free despite my physical limitations, financial limitations, emotional limitations. We all have them. Today we're going to have communion again. If we can get somebody to hand out the communion. Memorial Day is a time to be happy. Like I said, it's a bit of a somber note, but it ends well. See, it's going to end by us taking communion. And we're going to think about, Lord, you truly have set us free by going to the cross to satisfy what God required for the salvation of mankind. It says in chapter 10 of John, Jesus said this, I freely give myself. I always hear from the pulpits around America how God sent his son to the cross. Jesus said, his words, I freely give myself. He freely gave us himself so we could have freedom, spiritual freedom. The reality is spiritual freedom will make us free. Even, or shall I say, especially in our limitations. We are limited. We're very, very limited people. I thank you for tuning in, you millions of people around the world. You can give online theplaceinfallbrook.com. I'm just kidding. But you can't do it, but I am kidding. All right, Abel, that's enough of that.